Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming to the 20th Norman R. Seay Lecture. My name is John Morris, and I have the distinction of beginning the Norman R. Seay Lecture in 2006. And we're here today to really celebrate the man for whom the lecture is made, and is named, and also why he is so important to the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center and the committee that he developed for us, named the African American Advisory Board. Before we start, if everyone would take your devices and put them on mute, please. If you didn't get if you parked in the garages and did not get a validation ticket at the registration desk, you are welcome to get that as you leave, so you don't have to pay. You notice your program on the back has a couple of QR codes. One of those codes allows you to give feedback on this presentation today. And if you would be so kind as to do that evaluation, it will help us improve the Norman R. Seay Lecture in years to come. After the presentations, we're going to have a panel discussion, and that's to answer questions that you may have about the Norman R. Seay Lecture, the African American Advisory Board, but also about Alzheimer's disease and related disorders. Our team will distribute, if they haven't already, index cards to each of you, and you can write down your questions and they'll deliver them to the panelists and we'll try to address them. I want to embarrass two people today. First, from Seattle, Washington, we have in the audience Dr. Walter Kukel, who is a very renowned person in the Alzheimer's disease research field, as he is the founding director of the National Alzheimer Coordinating Center. He founded it in 1999, so 26 years ago. And he has just become the newest professor of neurology here at Washington University. So, Bud, will you stand up, please? And I also want to embarrass Professor Matt Gobble, who is with us today. He's a professor of political science here at Washington University and a longtime Knight ADRC collaborator, and he has very generously given us some support to allow this day to take place. So Matt, if you would stand up, please. And finally, I'd like to thank all of the Links Incorporated chapters in St. Louis and the 100 Black men who have offered their support for this presentation also. I said that was the final thanks, but I forgot. My memory not so good. So I'd also like to thank our outstanding outreach, recruitment, and education corps of the Knight Alzheimer's Center. They've worked very hard to put this event together and are still working very hard. They're led by Andre Denny and Jessica Mazursky, but Dottie McDowell, Murtis Spencer, and Jennifer Phillips are the ones who really deserve a round of applause. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce the chair of the Knight ADRC African American Advisory Board, Douglas Petty, PhD. Doug has 30 years of experience as an organizational and church consultant, educator, community organizer, executive life coach, and motivational speaker. And he's also an author of 4 books. He has been an ordained minister for over 40 years and has served on many community organizations, including the SSM Health System Board of Directors and the Urban League of St. Louis. So as the chair of the African American Advisory Board, would you please join me in welcoming Dr. Petty to the podium.
All right, well, good afternoon. Well, maybe 1/3 of you responded. Let me try that again. He did say pastor, right? So, good afternoon. That's what we're talking about. In order to have a healthy discussion, Dr. Morris has said many of the things that I probably would have, but some 25 years ago, because of his sensitivity to listening, and the picture that you see on the front of your program, Norman Seay, I mean, it's such a great picture with him looking up to where that is. A conversation began that led to the African American Advisory Board between the two of them. Through that conversation, it led to a change in the dynamics of how research is done in order to be able to be representative of the community as a whole. So I happen to be the fourth of the chairs of this African American Advisory Board, beginning with Norman Seay, then Ms. Bernice Thompson, who is sitting here right now. She didn't know that I saw her, but she was there, and then Ida Woolfolk, and then so I have become the first person to have the privilege of serving in this role. And then at the same time, my family has been impacted by dementia. I was the caretaker for both of my parents. I relocated them from Birmingham the last 15 years of their life to be the primary caretaker. And I am a part of the adult children's study. Hint, hint, for those of you, we're always open and receptive to many of you. In fact, if you'd like to sign up now, I could create a sheet, you know, if we could really do that. And so this is a great opportunity. Not only was the African American Advisory Board, but in honor of him, the 20 years of the Norman Seay Lecture Series. So 25 and 20. And the constant figure in all of that has been Dr. Morris and his commitment to excellence, not only in research, but as a scientist in dealing with science in its purest form. Because the only way it can be done purely, you have to be inclusive enough to not eliminate something because of your own biases. And that has been the greatest thing that I've admired about him as a person. I know John Morris, who happens to be a scientist. I don't know a scientist by the name of John Morris. So I hope one day you all get to know him. So he deserves an applause. So he's already outlined what's going to happen, and it's important that everyone who has something to say know that you're really paying attention. So some reflection on your faces, some smile, some wave, something vocal, that would really encourage them to say even more. And actually, thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much, Doug. That's very kind of you. In your program, you can see all of the past Seay lecturers. And the Seay Lecture enables us to bring in distinguished African American faculty in the fields of dementia to address this audience. Today, we're going to share videotape reflections from 3 of our past Seay lecturers, Dr. Consuelo Wilkins, who's professor of medicine in the Division of Geriatrics at Vanderbilt Medical Center, Robert Turner, who is associate professor in the Department of Health Sciences at Duke University, and Crystal Glover, who is associate professor in the Department of Neurology at the University of California, Irvine. So let us see the video presentations. Pretty captivating, aren't they?
I'm Dr. Consuelo Wilkins. I am a professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where I'm also the Senior Vice President and Senior Associate Dean for Community Health and Engagement. And I am also the Mildred Stallman Chair in Rural Health. I'm very excited to get to talk about my experience with Mr. Seay and the Seay Lecture. I started my career at Washington University and with the Knight ADRC, where I was initially a geriatrics fellow and then later on the faculty. So my work really was heavily influenced by not just the WashU ADRC, but also the St. Louis community. And I spent quite a bit of time in the community getting to know many of the community leaders like Mr. Seay. And so I was really delighted when he agreed to be a part of the advisory board. So my work has focused on older African Americans, specifically looking at their risk factors for cognitive impairment and thinking about ways to prevent cognitive decline. And it was really a wonderful and unique opportunity for me to get to learn and grow initially in St. Louis. When I think back on that early work, honestly couldn't imagine that I would be doing what I'm doing today, which is much broader, but still heavily focused on making sure that populations who are disproportionately impacted by chronic diseases have the best opportunity to thrive. Um, I can vividly remember some of the interactions that we had with Mr. Seay about what his advocacy for Alzheimer's disease might look like, especially given the fact that he had been such an incredible leader broadly about civil rights. But he was passionate because of his family history related to dementia and really wanted to understand what was happening at the research level and how he could really best be involved so that he could bring his authenticity to the work. So knowing what the ADRC was about, learning, and of course, his relationship with many of us, but especially with Dr. Morris, was very important. He wanted to know the people behind the work. And I think that really cemented his commitment to the work. And I think it's hard to get to that level of commitment and authenticity without having a relationship. And I think that was really clear and special. As I think back over the last many years, it's hard to believe actually that it was 20 years ago that the first lecture occurred. I was still at WashU at the time of the first lecture, so I was certainly honored to be invited back later to be one of the lecturers. As we look back over this time, I think about what Mr. Seay what he might say in this current climate and environment where so much of the work that he did and advocated for in terms of clinical research is currently under attack or being mischaracterized. And I think he would want us to stay true to the fundamentals of the work and ensuring that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to thrive, that we're thinking about those nuances in terms of what it takes, what it looks like, how the disease might look differently based on your background, your education, your race, ethnicity, your social standing, and ensuring that we don't lose that as we move the work forward. So I want to say congratulations to my dear friends and colleagues at Washington University, and thank you for continuing Mr. Norman Seay's legacy.
Hello, Thank you for allowing me to participate in this lecture series today. My name is Dr. Robert Turner, Robert Winston Turner II, and I'm an associate professor at Duke University in the School of Medicine in the Department of Population Health Sciences. I also have an appointment in the Aging Center, and I'm one of the leads for the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center at Duke and UNC, and I help lead the outreach, recruitment, and engagement for. Um, and I'd really, just kind of like to thank you for allowing me to be here. My work is really focused around for the purpose of kind of here is I am one of the directors and the founding partners for the Men's Brain Health Initiative, and we run a national conference every year for the Black Men's Brain Health Conference in partnership with the National Institute on Aging, as well as the Alzheimer's Association. And we also work with the NFL Alumni Association and the Pro Football Retired Players Association. And every year during the Super Bowl, we host a conference, both virtually as well as in person. We service about 2,000 people. And our whole goal for that project is to bring together researchers, clinicians, community-based organizations, anybody who is working on the local level to identify issues around Black men's brain health. And how can we get more Black men involved in research, both as clinicians, practitioners, but also as patients, as people who care about their own community, much like the work that you do at the Night ADRC. And we've been very fortunate to this. We're heading into our sixth year of our conference. We'll be in Oakland, California this year, and really, just my work has really kind of shifted, and I've been influenced by being a lecturer there last year at the Norman R. Seay lecture series, because I really started working much more closely with your own Dr. Joyce Berry. She has become a mentor, a really prominent mentor in our Emerging Scholars program that we host as part of the Black Men's Brain Health Conference and the Men's Brain Health Initiative. We select, I believe it's 8 scholars every year for a cohort. We focus on educating them, training them, and giving them the career advice that they need in order to help join this fight that we have in Alzheimer's and dementia research. And she's done an excellent job, really kind of drawing from some of the lessons that she's learned through her research and the work that you're doing there at the Night ADRC, as well as other scholars who have spoken on a lecture series and bringing some of that expertise to help the next generation. And as I reflect back, really, in terms of how I've grown over the last year since I've been involved with the lecture series, is last year when I came out there at that time, my dad had just recently went into the hospital. He had Alzheimer's, and I was his primary caregiver. And just the love and the support of the people who, reached out to me in so many different ways as I was going through that, and I sensed that I had lost my dad. But I just saw the compassion and the real commitment that people had there at night to this work. And it just reminds me of how important the work is. And then finally, the last thing that I would say is as I was thinking about, just the reflecting on who Norman Arce is, I read an article online that stated the work that he did with CORE there in St. Louis, and particularly how they decided to boycott the Jefferson Bank because they wanted them to hire 4 Black tellers. And one of the lines from the bank really struck me. And they said that we don't believe that there are 4 qualified Black people to work in our bank that live in the city of St. Louis. And that reminds me of how important, working for justice, working for all populations, all people coming together to make a difference in their community, and how, that spirit and not forgetting our past, understanding that people who have been champions in their own communities, how they can really make a difference. And that's in the spirit of what we have to think about his legacy and the work that he's done, really to champion, to find causes in the Alzheimer, in the world of Alzheimer's and dementia. And I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be part of this and for how much you've invested in me to keep working and drawing on our past and helping young people who need to be involved in this kind of work. So thanks again for having me.
Hello there, everyone. My name is Crystal Glover. I am an associate professor in neurology in the School of Medicine at the University of California, Irvine. I also lead the Outreach, Recruitment, and Engagement Core in the UC Irvine Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. My program of research focuses on facilitating optimal outcomes in aging and addressing challenges related to brain health. I am passionate about examining social, cognitive processes and decision-making associated with complex, nuanced, and sensitive topics in older age, especially among groups that have been inequitably included in research. Currently, clinical trial readiness is a major focus of my work. I aim to work with colleagues and community members to develop, foster participation for, and conduct rigorous dementia clinical trials, those that are scientifically necessary and equitable. I am honored to work with my colleagues to carry out this work. The Mr. Norman R. Seay Lecture Series has supported my academic vision. In 2018, I attended my first Seay Lecture. Dr. Joyce Ballsbury was one of the keynote speakers, alongside Dr. Carl Hill, I believe. I remember being in awe and inspired by Dr. Ballsbury. From her own research goals to learnings from her father, I wanted to build such a network. The following year, I was able to deliver the Seay keynote lecture. I felt connected to a new world of colleagues and community, us together in relationship and service of research for brain health. My talk pertained to research for Black communities in the context of purpose, representation, and resilience. I believe my work will always be grounded in these three pillars of advancement: purpose, representation, and resilience. Since my Seay Lecture, we have lived through COVID-19, contributed to unprecedented advances in innovation in aging and dementia research, and imagined a future of optimal aging for everyone. Furthermore, I met so many people during my Seay experiences that have become close collaborators, trusted confidants, and provide respected guidance, and who wish me well, and me to them. This is what the Seay Lecture represents to me: connection, community, progress. I will always be for equity and dedicate my work to it. On the 20th anniversary of the Mr. Norman R. Seay Lecture, I look forward to more. I extend my sincerest gratitude to Dr. John Morris for his vision and, more importantly, his actions in honoring Mr. Seay and his legacy by providing a continued forum for scholarship in service of an even better future. Thank you.
All right. I established the Norman R. Seay Lecture in 2006 to honor the man. I would like to share with you some background regarding his seminal role in launching the Knight ADRC's African American Advisory Board, and describe what the African American Advisory Board and Norman have meant to our center. So Norman is a St. Louis native, graduate of Vashon High School, and during high school, he helped establish the St. Louis chapter of the Congress of Racial Equality. He went on to get a degree in education from what then was Stowe Teachers College here in St. Louis, and then got a master's in education from Lincoln University in Jefferson City. He was a St. Louis City public school teacher, starting at the elementary school, but ending up at Sumner High School. Through his involvement with CORE, he became active in civil rights here in St. Louis, and through non-violent sit-ins, he and his colleagues encouraged St. Louis City to pass an ordinance desegregating all public accommodations, including eating establishments. As we heard from Dr. Turner, Norman Seay, along with his colleague and friend, William Clay Sr., who some of you will remember was a long-term congressman representing St. Louis in Washington, D.C., but Norman, Mr. Clay, and others in 1963 organized a boycott of the Jefferson Bank and Trust, which refused to hire African Americans in white-collar positions. These protests also were nonviolent, but nonetheless, many people were arrested, including Norman. So he was jailed for 3 months. And during that time, he started right away teaching the other inmates how to read and write. Those protests eventually won the day, and 4 African Americans the next year were hired as bank tellers at Jefferson Bank and Trust. But following his arrest, he no longer was welcome to teach in the public school system. He had no job. So eventually he joined the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare in the Washington, D.C. area. He was actually located in Maryland. And while there, he was instrumental in having Martin Luther King's birthday declared a national holiday. Finally, in 1983, President Reagan signed it into law. And we've seen this photograph, but it's very meaningful to Norman. That's Norman shaking hands with Martin Luther King. He is absolutely revered for his advocacy. And in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood, there is both a park and a street named for Norman Seay. Some of you will remember the 250th birthday of St. Louis. The St. Louis History Museum featured 50 people, 50 places, 50 images, 50 moments, and 50 objects that defined St. Louis since it was founded. Norman was one of the 50 people. As we've heard, Norman's mother developed Alzheimer's disease, and he brought her to me where I could evaluate and manage her dementia. And at the same time, I was assuming more leadership responsibilities for the Night ADRC. As I did so, I was struck that our research volunteers, who are all exceptionally dedicated and committed, but I noticed that they were virtually all white. So we had a non-representative cohort. I recognize that we need to make our research volunteers more representative of the population, more diverse. And so I asked Norman, who I knew from his accompanying his mother to her evaluations, if he wouldn't be able to recruit some influential African Americans in St. Louis to form an African American advisory board to educate, inform, and help the Night ADRC become more diverse. The inaugural meeting of the African American Advisory Board was in 2000, and fortunately, Norman was the inaugural chair. So as Doug Petty indicated, now, 2025, this is the 25th anniversary of the African American Advisory Board. Remarkable group of individuals, and we have many of them here today. So I'm going to ask them all to stand so that we can give them their recognition. Please stand. Well, as time went on, Norman gave me a great deal of things to think about, and hopefully I gave him at least some things to think about, and we became friends. I wanted the African American Advisory Board to help encourage African Americans in St. Louis to participate in our research. Those of you who know me know that I'm not very smart, but I did realize that if we only study white research participants, we'll only learn about Alzheimer's disease in white people. Also, African Americans appear to be at greater risk for Alzheimer's disease than white people, but we don't fully understand why this might be so. So we need to include African Americans in our research. I also know that African Americans aren't going to volunteer and participate in our research if we're not welcoming and culturally sensitive and culturally competent. So I asked Norman and the African American Advisory Board to help me, and indeed the entire Knight ADRC, become more welcoming to people of color. And our African American Advisory Board members serve to advocate and serve as ambassadors for the Knight ADRC in the African American community in St. Louis. Norman's leadership in those first years of the African American Advisory Board was absolutely critical. He was very respected, legendary civil rights leader, as you've heard, but he had many attributes. He was very organized, extremely punctual, dignified, professional, intelligent, generous of spirit, and full of grace and kindness. I never heard him say anything negative about any other person. Maybe me, but other than that. He truly was a true gentleman. He also said, if I'm going to chair the African American Advisory Board and encourage African Americans to become research volunteers, I should be a research volunteer so I understand what it is I'm asking people to do. So he became a Knight ADRC participant himself. And he did all of the research procedures, including a spinal tap. But he still wasn't going to let things slide. After he completed this entire battery of assessments and procedures, he came to me and he acknowledged, boy, that was really interesting. Your team is very professional. They're very supportive. But then he nailed me. He said, I did not see one person of color on your staff. So how can we be welcoming to people of color if we are all white ourselves? Again, leading by example, after his death, he donated his brain to our Alzheimer's disease research. And the photograph on the left is some sort of Washington University dinner and ceremony. And I'm supported, my wife is behind me, and Murtis Spencer is behind Norman. And here, just a few weeks really before his death, I was able to visit him in his home. So the Norman R. Seay Lecture, Norman in 2006, he's chair of the African American Advisory Board, had a small stroke. It wasn't disabling, but he thought he no longer should be the chair of the African American Advisory Board, so he stepped down. He remained a very active member of the AAAB, but he didn't want to lead it. And I thought, to honor what he meant to the Knight ADRC, we should have a Norman R. Seay Lecture. So that began in 2006, and it honors an African American investigator in the Alzheimer field. It was the first lecture at Washington University School of Medicine that honors an African American person. There is a Homer G. Phillips lecture, but that honors the hospital, not Mr. Phillips. So I thought it was apropos that Norman be the first person to be so honored. And the lecture, as we heard from Dr. Wilkins and Dr. Turner and Dr. Glover, brings accomplished African-American investigators who study Alzheimer's disease to Washington University to enrich all of us. Progress to date. The percentage of research volunteers who identify as African American in the Knight ADRC has increased from less than 3% in 2000 when the African American Advisory Board was established to now 16.5%. The Knight ADRC has hosted 2 national conferences, one in 2018, one in 2023, for which representatives from all 36 Alzheimer's disease research centers across the country sent representatives because we were discussing and thinking and working to improve the inclusion of African Americans in our research for Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. The African American Advisory Board has advised on how we should assess social determinants of health, and on a new study, we call it COMPASS, that relocates the Knight ADRC's research efforts outside of the medical school campus and into the communities where people are living and working. And it supports the careers of African American investigators at the Knight ADRC, including Consuelo Wilkins, Monique Williams, Lenice Cummings-Vaughn, Joy Ballsbury, and Jonathan Williams. So, congratulations to the Knight ADRC's African American Advisory Board on their 25th anniversary and for the 20th Norman R. Seay Lecture, because they've enabled the Knight ADRC to carry out its research mission by extending benefits to all people, including those who are underserved and disenfranchised. We have much more work to do, but we have undeniably made progress. So on behalf of the Knight ADRC, I give heartfelt thanks to Norman, Seay, and the African American Advisory Board. So in our remaining time, we're going to have a panel discussion, and I'm inviting to the stage 2 individuals from the Knight ADRC, Dr. Joyce Ballsbury, who's Associate Professor of Neurology and the core leader of the Health Disparities and Engagement Core in the Knight ADRC. Dr. Ballsbury did her undergraduate education in Xavier University in Louisiana and graduate training at WashU and the University of Toledo, and then completed a research fellowship in health equity at the University of Florida. We're very happy to have her return to St. Louis. She is a St. Louis native. This is her hometown to strengthen the work of our center. Please welcome Dr. Ballsbury.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
And Mrs. Dottie McDowell is a clinical research specialist in our Outreach, Recruitment, and Engagement Core, and also serves within the Health Disparities and Engagement Core led by Dr. Ballsbury. She advances community-centered strategies to increase participation of underrepresented groups in Alzheimer's disease research. She has a professional background in urban planning and health equity, and she works to strengthen trust and partnership between researchers and the communities they serve. So all of you are welcome to write on your index cards any comments, questions, or anything you would like our panelists to address. And all you have to do is hold up the card and people will magically appear and come and get it and bring it up to us. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, this is for Dottie. People talk about the Memory and Aging Project. What is that all about? What is involved?
Good afternoon, everyone.
afternoon. So the Memory and Aging Project is a longitudinal study that looks at changes to an individual's memory and thinking year over year. And so there aren't any drugs or medications involved. However, there are a series of assessments, evaluations, cognitive testing, a blood draw, spinal tap, and some other tests that happen sometimes every couple of years, but the cognitive assessments and the memory test happen every year. One of the questions that I hear commonly is, well, what does it mean when it says I have to have a study partner? What kind of homework am I going to have? And a study partner isn't necessarily there to help with any homework, but it's someone that knows you well enough to come with you annually for those assessments and visits, because they will be asked some questions too about an event maybe that both the participant and the study partner went to together, and it helps us evaluate the individual's memory and thinking and any changes that happen year over year.
Thank you, Dottie. Joy, there's stigma in talking about dementia in the Black community. How can we support individuals who may have a loved one with Alzheimer's and encourage them to seek diagnosis and support and to contribute to research?
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, and thank you everyone for being here today. So I think that the question is multifaceted. The first part is acknowledging that often communities of color, especially African American communities, we're often not believed when we go in to see healthcare providers. So acknowledging that and the historical underpinnings of science that has further harmed us, I think are the first steps. So one of the things that we've been doing here locally since I've returned, and I know this is something that was part of your vision, John, is making sure that we bring our researchers and our faculty members to the community. I'm looking in the audience, like Dr. Moisa Uche has been to my church before. We've had Dr. Jonathan Williams attend lectures at like Union Memorial Church, and we've gone out in the community to talk about Alzheimer's disease. The other thing is reminding people, just because grandma or grandpa or someone that might be younger is experiencing changes, that might not necessarily be normal aging. And to encourage people to have conversations with their family members and their healthcare teams. We also encourage them, if they don't feel like they're listened to, find another doctor. You know, because there's a ton of physicians in primary care here in St. Louis, a ton of advanced practice providers here in the community as well. And we want to make sure that people have the chance to talk to someone that is hearing them. In terms of research, one of the things that we often do, at least in my lab and in the Health Disparities Engagement Corps, and even in the Night ADRC, is we encourage each other to share our stories as research participants, but also talk about all aspects of research participation to make sure that people understand what they're signing up for, to make sure that the consent process is clear, but also telling them that they can advocate for science and then they can come back to us to help us create better ideas, which fosters partnerships. It's more than just us taking from them, but also giving back as well.
Okay.
I'll shut up now.
Is there a specific age to be a participant in the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center? Yes. You have to be 40 years or older. Now, that seems odd because Alzheimer's disease usually affects people after age 70. But what we and others have discovered is the brain changes that ultimately lead to Alzheimer's dementia begin in midlife. We think as young as 45 years in some people. Doesn't have enough damage to the brain to cause any problems with memory or thinking at that time. People are perfectly normal, but it will continue to build up, and eventually it causes so much brain damage that the memory fails and the dementia occurs. Now, why do we want to learn about this asymptomatic stage when it's just starting but hasn't caused problems? Because the dementia occurs when the brain cells are dead and damaged. If we wait to treat people when they have dementia, when the brain is already damaged, we're going to have a very hard time to restore function. It would be much better to start treating people when they've started the brain changes but don't have any symptoms. Start treatment then to prevent the symptoms. So we're looking at middle-aged people as well as older adults, so 40 and older. Dottie, what community collaborations do we have here or in the region or even nationally to help our research?
I'm glad you asked.
Well, you're welcome.
So our community collaborations and partners are essential to this research because they help us to establish rapport and ultimately build trust, particularly in underrepresented communities. Some of our community collaborators are here today. As you heard earlier, the St. Louis, Missouri chapter of the Links Incorporated is represented. They've been a long time collaborator with introducing us to the community and hosting different forums and opportunities to educate the community. I also see a representative here from Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated East St. Louis chapter. They've been really instrumental in helping us reach people in the Metro East, particularly in East St. Louis. Over the past year, we've had 2 engagements with them, and we've had a packed house each time. So we have had 200 people total, 100 people roughly for each engagement. And without partners like the ones named and others that I haven't named, we wouldn't be as successful as we are, because they're the names that the community knows and trusts. And so if they say they're hosting something and that we're a partner, people are more likely to come. And we've experienced that. And I can't forget our friend that's standing up in the back, Dr. Herb Caldwell with Dream Seeding and the Mama Joe Project, which is a documentary about his mother and their family's journey for caring for her as she lived with Alzheimer's. So they've gone on a national tour to promote this documentary throughout the United States, and they've allowed us to tag along as a partner. Dr. Joyce is featured in the film along with some other researchers from Washington University and across the United States. But there's a built-in audience with that film. And so when we go and sometimes participate as panelists and have a table during the activities, we get to interface with people and dialogue with them one-on-one about their concerns, about their memory and thinking, about what's going on with their loved ones, and invite them to be a part of other opportunities. And I have a special guest here today, Miss Adele, who is new to St. Louis from Dallas, Texas. We just met her, may have been last Sunday or the Sunday before, and she said, I really want to be a part of what you all are doing. And so we're continuing to build this community. And so partnerships are essential. Thank you.
Thank you, Dottie. What can we do to prevent Alzheimer's disease? There's only one thing I know, and that is to become a research participant in the Knight Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. We'd love to know how to prevent Alzheimer's. I mentioned it is possible that if we can identify the beginnings of the disease in the brain before it causes symptoms and treat that, that's potentially a prevention. All of us can live a healthy lifestyle. That means diet. They talk about a heart-healthy diet. What's bad for the heart in middle age? High blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol is bad for the brain in late life. So healthy lifestyle, healthy diet, heart healthy, and staying active. Physical activity, social activity, and mental activity. And has also been said that if you attended the Norman R. Seay Lectures, that is great mental activity. Dr. Ballsbury,
Yes.
what is this about social determinants of health? What is that, and is that a factor in why Blacks develop Alzheimer's disease?
So social determinants of health really relate to our ability to have the things that we need for quality of life. It can relate to our ability to have the right education or appropriate education. It can relate to our access to appropriate and quality health care. It relates to the neighborhoods we live in. It could be, if it's a rural community, how far are you away from the hospital? If you're in an urban core, so let's think about the Penrose neighborhood here in St. Louis that was devastated by the tornado. There's no grocery stores in that neighborhood. There's no hospitals in that neighborhood. And yet we have community members, many older adults, and a lot of former teachers from high schools like Charles Sumner High School live in that community, but yet there's no access to care. So that ends up increasing one's ability to be able to have the quality of life that they might need. So think about the MetroLink. When the MetroLink started here in St. Louis, it ran east and west, right? But yet it didn't go north and south. And there are people that live in deep North City or deep South City that may not have access to proper transportation. So those are determinants of health. Our income levels, our access to care, our access to jobs, our transportation, our ability to be seen, our experiences even with discrimination, be it racism or sexism or even ageism. All of those things impact our allostatic load or our stress levels, and can also even impact the diseases that impact our heart, which impact our brain. So think about stress. We have more stress, those stress hormones go up, then our ability to be able to fight off certain things, and maybe we don't eat well because there's no grocery store. So if we're in a certain community, we might go to the bodega. If the bodega doesn't have good food or healthy food. So how do we make sure that we're doing the things that we can do to improve our health? So addressing those determinants of health, that means looking at what we need to do from urban planning stance in terms of making sure that grocery stores are opening, making sure that we are decentralizing what we're doing in healthcare. That means taking mobile units to communities where there's no clinics. That also means even taking communities like the Compass Project or my research registry, where we have decentralized what we're doing in terms of giving people the opportunity to participate in research. So yes, social determinants of health impact our brain health. They impact our risk for Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia, as well as other diseases of the body.
Thank you. We are running out of time. I'm going to try to give very brief answers to some questions that have come up repeatedly. Are men or women more likely to get Alzheimer's disease? Women. Not only because they live longer, and age, getting older, is the #1 risk factor for Alzheimer's. Family history is second. But even for people of the same age, more women get Alzheimer's than men. #2, is there a blood test for Alzheimer's? Yes. Not widely known, not widely used, but it will be. We will develop there is a blood test for Alzheimer's, and it will become very helpful in identifying who is really has the disease. Is there treatment for Alzheimer's? Yes. Not for Alzheimer's dementia. There are 2 drugs now, there will be more, that slow the rate of decline. They don't stop the decline, they don't reverse the decline, but they slow the rate. They benefit people. But have I said this before? I think the real aim is not to wait till people have Alzheimer's dementia to treat, but to treat before Alzheimer's dementia, prevention. Number 3, how can I get involved in research? So Andre Denny is in the back, she's standing up. Anybody who wants to talk about research, line up and talk to Andre. We can't get to all of these great questions, so we're keeping these cards and we're going to try to develop some answers, and we'll put them on a QR code or something like that. So Joy and I are going to step down, but Dottie, you have a call for action, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, please.
So, thank you both. So you've heard that we've made significant progress in getting African Americans to participate in Alzheimer's research over the past 2 decades. So we've gone from just under 3% of people in research identifying as African American to now nearly 18%. But our work is far from over. The breakthroughs and advances that we've had in this research started with each of those participants saying yes to participate. Those yeses led to breakthroughs, advancements, progress. We've got so much more work to do. And those yeses are true examples of what can happen when science and community moves together. So today, I would like for each of you to either flip over your program and scan the QR code if you're not already participating in research. That code will direct you to a site where you can fill out an inquiry form, and we'll call you back personally and share details about the research opportunities that we have available and how you can become involved. And if you aren't quite ready to take that step on being involved in research as a participant, we would like to engage with you through education and additional outreach. So today, we're not only honoring Norman R. Seay's legacy by remembering him, we are accelerating progress. And I'm so happy that each of you are together with me on this journey. So if we could put the slide up for QR code. Thank you. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Morris.
So I'm going to call to the podium Murtis Spencer. Murtis is the community coordinator for the Knight ADRC and serves the African American Advisory Board, as well as is responsible for the Norman R. Seay Lecture. She's been doing this all for 17 years, and it's time to give her acknowledgement. So we have a presentation to Murtis Spencer in recognition for excellence in championing the mission of inclusivity in research, October 14th, 2025. Murtis, come right over here and get congratulated. Come on through. All right. Well, that can. Okay, Murtis. You want to say something? If you like, please.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Morris, and to the Knight ADRC for this award. I'm a little excited right now, but this is what comes to mind. John Donne in the 16th century wrote this: "No man is an island, no man lives alone. Each man's joy is joy to me, each man's grief is my own. We need one another, so I will defend each man as my brother, each man as my friend." So, to all of you here today, however we have touched individually via your organizations, we are friends. And we want that community to just blossom. So, as has already been mentioned, come play with us at the MAP, 4488 Forest Park. Thank you all so much. And again, to Dr. Morris, who is a wonderful visionary. And it wouldn't happen if you didn't have that vision, Dr. Morris. So thank you so very much.
Well, thank you all for coming, and that concludes the 20th anniversary. Let's hope that by the 25th anniversary of the Norman R. Seay Lecture, that we really do have better drugs to treat the disease and maybe even prevent it. Thank you all for coming.